Welcome to the Power of Pleasure podcast. I'm your host, L'Oreal, and I'm on a mission to help you embrace pleasure as a lifestyle. This show is a love letter to all the pleasure life has to offer. And each week, I'll be chatting with friends, loved ones, peers, and people I admire about all things pleasure. Through these conversations, I'm giving you the best tools, resources, and tips to help you create a life that is ooey gooey juicy good, one shift at a time. So buckle up and let's get ready for this week's episode. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, beautiful people. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the Power of Pleasure podcast. I am your host, L'Oreal Moss, and today we are getting to the money, honey. I'm so excited. We are going to be talking about how to afford everything and how being a good steward of our finances can be a pleasurable experience. Today, I am joined by Dr. Darla Bishop. Emphasis on that doctor, baby. Don't play. She is a healthcare executive, financial educator, and author. And she has an incredible story about resilience and transformation and turning her survival skills into wealth building strategies. All right. All that said to say, we're not just going to talk about building generational wealth. We're actually going to help put some tips and some tools and some strategies in place to help you get to the bag for real, okay? Dr. Bishop grew up navigating challenges that many would consider insurmountable, and now she teaches whoever will listen that money is fun. So please help me welcome Dr. Darla Bishop. Good morning, how are you?
Good morning. Thank you so much. I am so excited to talk about this because I think, and I'm sure we'll get into this. So many people think budgeting and managing your finances, like those are bad words, right? Budget's a bad word and I don't ever have to get it together. But like I get so much pleasure and joy and fulfillment from having my money together.
I'm sure a lot of people would, and this is so important, right? Because a lot of times when when they're watching the TED Talks, when they're listening to the podcast, they're reading the books and reading the articles, there's this voice in the back in their head, like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, I want this to work, but I really don't feel like this is for me because this person is on this platform. They're speaking about these things. They've already got it together, and sometimes there's this separation, right? Maybe they don't remember what it's like to start at this point in order to get to the next level. And so I really would like for you to, just take a moment and share anything about yourself that I may have missed that the people need to know. And then we can jump into the conversation because I would love to know what inspired you to do this work that you're doing.
Yeah, so I'm so glad you talked about that distance that we feel exists because I'm going to start with this and I'm going to end with this. This part is if them, why not me? Is always the question we ask because you don't know anyone's story, right? You only see that part. And with social media, we get the opportunity to curate oftentimes the best picture. And this became so clear to me a couple years ago. As part of my work, I convened a community group and I had told a story about how when I was in high school and I wasn't sure I'd ever be able to go to college, not because I wasn't smart, but because we had this big bad thing happen in my family that just turned everything upside down. And I wasn't sure if it was realistic, unselfish for me to be like, I still want to go to college if I wasn't sure where my younger siblings were going to be and if they would be healthy and safe and all that. And what shifted for me is in telling that story, which I didn't often tell, right? Because it wasn't relevant. When you go to college and you have these weird things that you left at home on purpose, you don't introduce yourself as like, hi, I barely made it here because of these things. And like, I got my siblings at home and I might need to be their foster parent. Like, we're just not going to talk about none of that because in that moment it's not relevant. And because these people don't know me, I get to step into the space and introduce the part of me that I want them to interact with most. And so for years and years, I didn't tell those part of my story. So people had these assumptions like, oh, you a doctor, you're so smart, you went to all this education, you're good with money. So your parents must have been rich doctors who helped you do everything. And I was like, no. Mm-mm. Smart, yes. Resilient, yes. Resourceful AF, absolutely. But doctors, rich, and gave me everything, not even close. And so it told me that it was so important that people need to know that the Dr. Bishop that they meet today used to be Darla, who wasn't so sure we was gonna have something to eat tomorrow and whether I needed to go get an extra job to contribute to the household. Right. And that's not, and I try to be really careful about how and when I talk about this, because this isn't to villainize the adults in my life. The parents around me did the absolute best they could. In fact, they made miracles out of what they had. So this isn't about saying my parents made bad choices or did bad things. It ain't about them. But the fact that I grew up in mess and created a life that is so beautiful and easy and peaceful is the reason why I talk about it, because I want people to know wherever they are that if this is where they want to get, you can do it. If over there is where you want to get, you can do it. If over there is where you want to get, you can do it.
I love that. And thank you so much for sharing that and reminding the people that a lot of what you see on social media is the highlight reel. Everybody is not walking around, living that love and hip hop life. A lot of people are not walking around living the housewives of Potomac or whatever city. A lot of people are not walking around with like camera crews recording everything that's going on with them. Like this, your life is not an episode of Baddies. Even the people who have been on the show don't live like that constantly. It's all like curated to provide a certain perspective and to just show people a certain outlook. That is just a fraction of the way that a lot of people are living. And so I appreciate you, highlighting that a lot of what we see on social media is just a highlight reel. So to get a little bit deeper into the conversation, right? I really want to tap into your expertise on this. What do you think is a common misconception that people have about money that's likely stopping them from seeing it as a source of pleasure or empowerment?
Well, it's not exactly a misconception. It's actually a lack of awareness. Whenever I work with someone one on one, they have worked up the courage. They said, I've been seeing you online, or my friend told me you helped them, or I know you personally, and so I noticed the way you move, and I would love to be able to move in that way. And it takes them a lot to kind of work up the courage to ask, and they say, how do I do it? I don't even know where to start. And it's because when it comes down to it, they have been scared to really do a deep dive on where their money is going and whether it matches what they say or what they feel they want their life to be like. And so the very first thing I have anybody do if they're wanting to work with me is I actually have them look at where their money went for the last 90 days. Like, where did it go? What did you spend money on? What did you plan to spend it on? What did you actually spend it on? Was it more or less? Did something catch you off guard? Did you have an emergency? Did something come up that always comes up, but you forget that it always comes up? And so you were still scrambling to take care of it. Does it turn out that you actually are pretty good with your money? You just got too many dang on obligations. And so how do you get those obligations under control or get more money in the door? Because once we know that part of writing it down, how much you owe everybody and where the money went is scary. And it you literally feel it in your body, right? Your chest get a little tight, your breathing gets a little labored, your head might even start to hurt. But that's the hardest part, because once we have it, and I actually have people write it down on physical paper, once we have it written down, then that actually removes so much of that power away from it. Because now it's just numbers and letters on a piece of paper, and we are much bigger than the letters and the numbers on that piece of paper. We can do something about it. We can make a plan.
And I know that is something hard. I have done that more than once. And I think that kind of can be the thinking too. Like if I just sit down and do it this one time, I won't have to do it again. I've done it 3, 4 times, about to do it again. Because, and I personally think, and this is my experience, when you have like bad money habits, or maybe you didn't have an example of, how to be a good steward over your money, you have to, just like you have to work to break bad habits, like eating too much junk food, not working out, like you have to do the same thing when it comes to your money.
That's
If
right.
you grew up just constantly seeing people swipe the card, and so whenever you got money, you just swipe, swipe, swipe until it's hitting the negative, and you're like, dang, how did I do that? It takes a while to break that habit and be more intentional about your spending habits.
It does. And part of it is like, I'm constantly looking at my money. And if you actually meet any truly wealthy people, like not the people who maybe look wealthy or look rich, but the people who are actually wealthy, they know their numbers so tight. Think about, and the example I like to give is think about Shark Tank, right? It's a very specific example, but the people who go on Shark Tank to talk about their product and who get deals, it's always, always, always the company, the team that knows their numbers, top, bottom, left, right. Wealthy people are the same way. If I walk up to someone who I know is of wealth and we have the kind of relationship, I can ask them, how are your investments doing? And they can tell me down to the $100 mark. How is your rental property doing? They can tell me down to the $10 mark. Like they know their numbers because they're constantly looking at, they're constantly adjusting. And so instead of looking at it as like, okay, I just got to do it this one time, thinking like, I get to shape my budget around the life I want to live. I get to change my budget and do money the way that works for me. Whenever something changes, I can change it. The relationship between me and money is the relationship between me and money. Whatever anybody else got to say, unless they are here to help, I can turn my blinders, I can cover my ears. I don't need to listen to them because this relationship that I have with me and money is me and money. And so we're gonna get in here and do what we need to do whenever we need to do it and change and flip and change and shift. Because when you take that as like, okay, I have the control, I have the power, I have the ability to do this however I want, then that taps into the like, okay, this could be fun. And for me, money is fun. That's why I say that all the time. Money is fun because if you can figure out how to make it a game, okay, how can I make this grow? How can I make this shrink? How can I make this stretch? And if you grew up without means for any portion of your life, you have those skills. We just got to flip them. We just got to flip them.
Thank you so much for that. I agree. I think, Black folks in general, like we all have the ability to make something out of nothing. Like whether we realize it or not. Like the other day, I haven't been grocery shopping because I just don't want to. I haven't been grocery shopping, and I went in there like, oh, what is in here? And turned around and made a delicious breakfast. I took some potatoes and some eggs and some bacon, some leftover vegetables, and cooked it all up. It was so good. Breakfast skillet smash, like it was delicious. And now it's like being requested constantly. And I just went in there and threw some stuff together and made it amazing. And I feel like we all have the ability to do that once we, just tap into that inner strength, or tap into that mindset. And so on that note, how important do you think mindset is when it comes to building a healthier, more joyful relationship with money?
It's the number one thing. If you pick up a copy of How to Afford Everything, I actually jump right in and be like, okay, so what's your first memory of money? What your parents used to say about money? What's the first way you earned money? Because we got to break those down so that you even understand why you think the things you think. So many times, the messages, the thoughts, the feelings we have about money actually aren't even from us. They were given to us, usually as a gift, usually as something meant to protect or teach or train us, right? Like, but you always had at least one elder in the family who said, well, baby, don't, we steal it from Peter to pay Paul, or, well, don't put all your eggs in one basket, or always have a little emergency money, right? Like, again, these are all things that were said or given to us and meant to be a gift, but may not fit our situation or the situation we're trying to get ourselves to. And so understanding where they come from is really helpful in being like, oh, that came from this situation or their experience, and it doesn't actually apply to me, or it just doesn't serve me right now in what I'm trying to do. So it's a little easier to let it go, because we also have a hard time letting go of things like that have saved us in the past, right? Like Think about it. How many, and this might not apply to you, but I'm sure there's at least one listener out there who rents out all the Tupperware, who maybe even save some of the foil, who got furniture in their house that ain't quite right, but just in case we need it, right? Just in case we need it. We don't waste because just in case we need it. And when you're in survival mode, having that just in case we need it, because you always have something to need, is really good. But when you're in build mode, having too much stuff, having too many things can actually be harmful.
I appreciate you speaking on that. I think a lot of people don't really take the time to, and of course, this isn't everybody, but a lot of people don't really take the time to do an inventory, not only of their money habits, but just their lifestyle in general. And so when it comes to people creating a lifestyle, like they're working on their mindset. So let's say their mind is in the right place, their heart is in the right place, but you've got social media, you've got all of this societal pressure, this consumerism, just constantly in their faces and probably either scaring them or getting them to like talk themselves out of doing what they feel is right and getting on a better path. And so, how do you feel like those pressures affect people's ability to be able to find pleasure in being a better financial steward?
And the thing about social media is, you have a lot of control over what
Mhm.
things are shown to you, right? And so you can unfollow, you can block, and you can add and follow the things that help you get to where you are, that you have not all the control, but a little bit of control about what things are showing up in your feed. So, like right now, I'm mainly active on Instagram and LinkedIn. And on Instagram, my feed is awesome. It's money people. And I tend to like to follow the frugal lifestyle. Like, I am not a frugal person. I live by frugal principles, but not too far. Like the people who like be like, oh, I don't buy new clothes. No, no, no. If I see an outfit and it's in the budget, we buying it. Oh, I paint my own nails. I brush my own hair. Not over here. Okay. I
Mhm.
have a hairdresser who comes to my house to take care of my daughter who has as much hair as I do, but not nearly as good sitting ability, because
Mhm.
that makes my life easier. And her hair is always cute. And people be like, oh my gosh, Maddie's hair is always so cute. I'm like, yes, because I have a lady for that. I have a lady for that. Right. And so I
Mhm.
think part of it is like, if you do it and you don't give up before you get the win, you'll see just how good and delicious it is to do the thing and get the result, and then do the thing and get the result over and over again. You almost get a little addicted to it. Like, ooh, I saved this money. Ooh, we paid that off. Ooh, we were able to get this or make this happen and it wasn't stressful. Ooh, we had a tire blowout and it was a little bit annoying because I wanted to go to one more store on my errands, but I had to stop at the tire place, but they took care of me in 1 hour and we were back on track, right? Like, you start to feel all these little moments of pleasure and joy and ease. And you're like, oh, wait, I could live like this all the time. I'm going to keep going in this direction.
Yes, I've seen it a lot where they're like, oh, I keep seeing this, I keep seeing that. It's like, listen, block. It's there for a reason. Don't be afraid to use it. If you're still on Facebook, snooze some of the stuff you're seeing. And it's okay for you to unfollow people, even if it's just temporarily, right? Like it might not even be that you have a problem with them or what they're saying, but it's triggering you. It's bringing up, memories of like a traumatic experience, or it's making you feel like crap about yourself. It's okay for you to just temporarily unfollow. If you feel like you can't function, or every time you see this person you're like, oh, they're showing off, blah blah blah, you slipping into hater mode, unfollow. Just don't just don't do that to yourself. You absolutely can save yourself all of that extra energy. Put the energy towards something that's going to nourish you instead. So we talked a little bit about like making something out of nothing, having the how important mindset is to creating better financial habits. But what about those people who, like I said, their mind is in the right place, they've been trying new things to make more money, they've been trying to save, and they just can't find the thing that works? Where is a really good starting point for them?
And that's such a hard place to be, right? Like, I talk to a lot of young people who are like, but I did all the right things, right? Like, I went to school, but now I got all these student loans. I came out of college thinking I'd be able to get a job, and I got a job, but unlike my counterparts who had parents who were able to write checks for tuition, my whole check ain't mine. My check has to go a little bit to the student loan people, a little bit so because I'm still helping somebody in the family, which is important to me. So I'm still doing that. Plus, I gotta build not only from scratch, but from a little bit in the hole because again, the student loan debt. And one of the things we figure out is like, okay, how long could you stand to go without? If we put you on a plan that was really restrictive, which is my least favorite, but if we put you on a plan that's really restrictive for 3 months, do you think you could do it if at the end of the 3 months, this is where you end up? People say, okay, yeah, I think I can do it. Okay, what about 6 months? If we do this real in this very specific way, do you think you could do it for 6 months if by the end of that 6 months you do that? Then the answer will be yes. What happens and why the people you're talking about usually feel the way they do is they actually make it too tight. And then they say, I'm tired of only eating rice and beans and noodles. I'm tired of saying no when my friends are going to do fun stuff. I want to do hood rat stuff, and hood rat stuff costs money. And I'm tired of saying no. And so, you know what? This weekend, not only am I going to go do hood rat stuff with my hood rat friends, I'm paying for everything because you know what? I ain't been out and I feel bad and I miss them and I just need a break. And so then they blow their budget for a month and a half because they were too tight. That's the mistake, right? And so you got to build in pleasure when you are dealing with your money and you got a big shift to make. Don't you dare, and I'm mad. Like I got heated over this. Don't you dare deny yourself the ability to live good right now, because the only way your body, your brain, your spirit is going to trust that all the things you're doing to get to the other side, whatever that is for you, is actually going to work is if you treat it good today. And so when you're at the grocery store, buy some of the stuff that you like, put it in the grocery cart. Put a little money aside in a concert fund, in a brunch fund, into whatever. So that way, when a friend calls and invites you, you have the ability to say yes, because you have to live good today in small ways so that as you're working the plan, even if it takes you 6 more months, you'll get there much smoother. You'll get there much happier. You'll get there much healthier. Don't you dare wait to live good. Build good living in today. Now, I'm not saying go have steak dinners, but you can when the steak is on sale. Buy it at the grocery store, cook it up real good in a cast iron, put some butter in it, let that garlic sizzle, slice it up real delicious, put it one baked potato next to it, steam up some broccoli. That's a meal that you can have beautifully and deliciously for $10 if you do it right.
Thank you. I'm so glad I was on mute because I was laughing so hard because I have done that. I've been that person where I deprive myself and not even on purpose, but because I'm so focused on doing the right thing and I want to change my outcome so bad. Like I want things to move in a better direction, where I just stop doing all the things that feel good. And then I get to the point where I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. And then I just blow the whole bag. And then I'm sitting there like, why did I do that? Like it was fun, but I didn't have to go that hard with everything that I was doing. And it brought up a memory, like something I grew up hearing a lot was you can have fun later. Make sure make sure you pay those bills. Make sure you do this, make sure you do that. You can have fun later. You can vacation later. You can hang out with your friends later. And in that moment, it never occurred to me when I was hearing those things to look at the life of the person telling me that as like evidence that that was fake, that was not true. But now I've grown, and so whenever I hear that voice, pop up, you can play later. I'm playing a little bit now. I'm gonna play a little bit now because I dare not. I dare not deprive myself. So thank you so much for touching on that. Another question that I wanted to ask you, and you've probably encountered this a lot. What would your advice be for someone who feels like they're trapped in a cycle of not enough, whether it's not enough money, or they're not making enough progress, or they're starting to lose steam when it comes to going after their goal?
There are 3 things that can make the difference for somebody who is going through that. The first is gratitude. Gratitude is scientifically proven to be helpful. Because if you can, even on your worst day, find 3 to 5 things to be grateful for, even if it's that, okay, all I got is I'm grateful that my voice is working today, so I can say the things I'm grateful for, even though I don't really have a long list this morning, right? That there's something about gratitude that changes things. The second thing is we are always, especially people who are working on a goal, anybody who's been working on a goal is almost always very focused on the gap. Like, okay, so I started at point A, I'm trying to get to point E. Dang, I'm only at B. Dang, I'm only at C. And so we're looking at that difference between where we are and where we're going. And rarely, almost never, do we turn around and be like, oh, snap, I have made good progress. I'm more than halfway there. Where I was 5 months ago, a year ago, is completely different than where I am. And I'm really proud of myself. And so take a moment to figure out the gain. What have I gained? What have I learned? What have I accomplished? And yes, I'm still going, but what have I already done? What have I already done?
You are really speaking to my soul. Like this is so important. I just got done running like a 7-day challenge where I was introducing people to journaling and how, transformative the practice could be. And we talked a lot about gratitude. And I walked them through this exercise where I told them two stories. The first story was this, it's the same story, but it was a different mindset. And so the first story, like the person, they're grumpy, they burned their toast, they woke up and their back was hurting, all this stuff. And the only thing that changed in both stories is that the second person was grateful. Instead of waking up like, oh, I gotta go to work. Oh, I get to go to work today. Let me go ahead and go make this money. Oh, my back hurts. That just means I need to do a little bit of stretching. Let me go ahead and stretch. I appreciate the awareness. Burnt the toast. Let me just get a butter knife and scrape that off. We're gonna keep it moving. You know what I'm saying?
And you have
Okay.
to practice. The third thing is you have to practice this. You have to practice it. If this is not something you're used to, if you're not used to being in a space of gratitude, if you're not used to seeing the positive, you got to almost like trick yourself. So if your brain isn't cooperating, the most powerful thing you can do is change the way you talk about stuff. Because when you change the way you talk about things, your brain gets to hear it from the outside. And then it's
Mm.
like, oh, that's how we talk about money now. So I'm being like, instead of being like, I'm always broke, it's never enough. You know what? I'm on a plan. I'm working towards things are getting better for me. I have more awareness. Find a way to talk and speak life, to speak abundance, to speak I'm on my way into the process, because soon enough, not only will your brain believe it because it's been hearing it come out of your mouth and hitting the brain from the ear, but the people around you will start repeating it back to you. When I was in college, I worked a million jobs. I think there was a semester I probably had like 3.5 jobs, because for me, that was the way I figured out how to afford everything that I need to afford. For other people, they have other ways, but that was the way I did it in college. And people would be like, oh, are you coming to the party? I'm like, no, I got to work. Is it, how late is it going to be done or whatever? And they'd be like, oh, that's right, because you'd rather be tired than broke. Or they'd be like, oh, you look a little, you okay? You look like you a little bit tired. I said, I am tired. Like I had to stay up late and I worked a double and I have a paper due. And so I am tired, but you know what? I'd rather be tired than broke. And so soon enough, all my friends used to say that, oh, here come Darla. She'd rather be tired than broke. And like that, like although they were rolling their eyes and kind of making fun of me, what a powerful affirmation. Like, that's right. I'm doing it. People see that I'm doing the work of not being broke because I'd rather be tired than broken. Baby, call me what you want, but you can't call me broke. Money.
I love that. Yes, yes, yes. And thank you for touching on that. And shout out to you for like standing 10 toes down in what you wanted, right? And not letting like the little jokey jokes throw you off kilter.
I don't have enough commas in my bank account to let other people sway me. I
Mm,
cannot afford taking a day off from believing in myself.
that is beautiful. That is beautiful. Like, do you have that on a shirt?
You know what? Let me fill out this trademark application right now because it's the second time this came up. Let me go ahead. and get that trademark right now.
Yes, do that. I love that. And as soon as it's done, please, I need that on the shirt. I'm so serious. Now we can get more into like the emotional side, right? When you are coming across people who have a lot of heavy emotions attached to their money or their money story, the guilt and the shame and the fear around their financial decisions, what are some ways that they can deal with it, or that you've helped your clients deal with that?
One of my favorite exercises, and again, a lot of the heavy things we do in the beginning. Yes, spreadsheets are great because you can organize, you can calculate. Apps are great because it can show you patterns and make cute little graphs about where the money is going. But when we're first starting, doing this on good old fashioned pencil or pen and paper is so powerful. That brain body connection does truly make a difference. And so one of my favorite exercises to do with anybody, I've done this in group settings, when I've done workshops at companies and at universities, I've done this one-on-one with people, is I say, okay, first off, I want to remind you, or maybe I'm telling you for the first time because you've never heard it, it does not serve you to feel bad about yourself. It will not help you to worry about these things in the way that you've been worrying about you. Having the shame and having the guilt is not going to get you there faster. So here's what we're going to do. I want you to take a piece of paper, and the best paper to use for this is actually just like a plain piece of like copy paper from a printer, color paper, because sometimes that sparks something. And I want you to write down every negative thought you have about money, about why you don't have control about money, about why your life sucks when it comes to money. I want you to write it all down. And then when you think you're done, I want you to write 5 more. And then when you think you're done, I want you to write 3 more. And then when you think you're done, I want you to write 1 more. Okay, now I want you to look through that list. And I want you to tell me, we can use a highlighter or a pencil to circle, which one of those are actually true based on where you stand right now today on whatever day it is. Which of these are actually true, are fact, not something somebody told you, not something you read somewhere, but is actual, factual, real life. And it turns out most of them are not. I said, okay, great. Now that we did the exercise, ball that shit up. And I can't remember if I'm allowed to cuss, so I'm sorry.
Yes, you
But
could.
ball that shit up and throw it away. And we are done with that, because right now, that's not helping you. And so we're throwing that shit away because we're going to do the work to get you to where you said you want to go.
Because a lot of that, like we touched on earlier, a lot of what we carry with us, a lot of the stories and the thoughts and ideas we have about money, they're not even from us. They're from well-meaning people. Like you said, those things were given to us as a gift, and we just took it as law and made it into our identity and part of our belief system. And we didn't have to do that. So thank you for sharing that exercise with the people. And I hope those of you listening will actually just give it a try. Even, if you just for curiosity's sake, I hope that you will give it a
Yes.
try and see what change it can make.
And one thing that I also want to make sure that people hear me say is, just because you only know 1 or 2 ways to do something doesn't mean that that's the only way to do something. One of the best things that I got from going to kind of a big university with a name brand, is I got to see that there were literally 10,000 ways to make money, keep money, use money. And so for me, what that told me is like, oh, so the way that my mama did it, the way that my auntie did it, the way that my uncle did it, the way that my cousin did it, sometimes they got it right, sometimes they didn't. But all these thousands of people that I'm going to school with also have their own way. And so I don't have to follow what I think there are rules, as long as I'm doing things that are ethically and legal and fit with my morals. Like, I can do it however I need to. Cool. Great. And that released so much of the pressure of getting it right, because there's so many ways to get it right. You've been focused on all the ways you get it wrong, but that's only because maybe you haven't seen that there's 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times more ways that you can get it right.
I love that. And it just brings to mind like recipes, right? Like we're in the holiday season, and I personally am tired of seeing macaroni recipes, turkey recipes, dressing, stuffing. I listen, There are hundreds of thousands of different ways and small tweaks and different seasonings and stuff that people use to create the things that they love. So there's always more than one or two or even 12 ways to do the same thing and accomplish the same goal.
Yes, I'm so glad you said that. And I was just telling somebody this. I was like, think about Alfredo sauce, right? A lot of us love Alfredo sauce, a creamy white sauce. You can make Alfredo sauce from butter, flour, and water, or a little bit of milk. You can make
Hmm.
Alfredo sauce from heavy cream, butter, and cheese. You can make Alfredo sauce from condensed milk. You can make Alfredo sauce from pasta water, cheese, and butter. Like I just told you 4 ways to make Alfredo sauce, and they all come out very similar consistency, very similar color, very similar taste. And so, if it's 4 ways to make Alfredo sauce, how many ways is it that you can get your money right?
Yes, 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 yes. I love that. I love that so much. And so on that note, what is one piece of financial wisdom or one lesson that you wish more people understood when it comes to finding joy in financial stewardship?
It's fun if you make it fun. So make it fun. It takes the same energy to be miserable as it does to be happy. So choose happy.
That is so easy, simple, and straight to the point. And I love that you said that, it takes the same amount of energy to be miserable than it does to be happy. Like your brain does not really know the difference between you having a bad day and you having a good day, because the same parts of your brain are activated when you're experiencing happy emotions as it is when you're experiencing sad emotions. The only difference is like the way that the memory activates those things, and that influences your decision making. Your brain doesn't know what's real and what's fake unless you tell it what's real and what's fake. Like it has no idea. So it's all the same. It can all feel the same in your body. But the difference is whatever it is that you believe and how you're choosing to like use the energy that you have, or give out the spoons that you have. For those of you who are running on spoons, like choose to use your spoons more wisely. If there is someone listening that is in a season of financial struggle right now, what words of encouragement could you share with them to hopefully get them to just keep going?
The thing I was saying, I want you to get real close to your speaker, is it's not forever. This is temporary. You have everything you need within you to get over this. And so, if you have a day soon, if you have a moment soon where you have that spark of hope, hold on to that spark of hope and do not let go until you're out of it, because feeling down is natural and normal, and it will not help you get out of it. So, any moment you find a slice, a slither, a tiny fraction of hope or joy, grab it and don't let it go till you're out of the situation.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And I just want to take a moment to let that message sink in before I move on to the next question. So I'm going to hush for about 10 seconds. All right, we're back. So you wrote an amazing book, and it's about how to afford everything. I know you all probably can't see, but she did show the book. It's real pretty. Um, the cover is really pretty. And I would like for you to share a little bit about the book and what inspired you to write the book. But can you share what inspired you to write it and what people can get from it?
Yeah, so I told you a little bit earlier in this conversation about how going to college showed me that there were so many different ways to think about, use, feel about money. And as a 17-year-old who had barely made it to college, not because of my grades, I had excellent grades, but because of the family situation and not sure if we would be able to afford it and all that stuff. When I got there and I saw, like, I had a roommate with whose parents were writing checks for tuition. I had a classmate who had a Range Rover, and I was like, oh, okay. First of all, I'm here with them, and it took me a whole lot more effort to get here. So I'm probably as smart, if not smarter than them. I just don't have the money behind me. And two, like, I wonder if they know as much about money as I know. Because as someone who grew up with some poverty, we had some po times. Like, I actually knew a lot about money. I know how to stretch it. I know how to shrink it. I know how to make it work. I know how to split it up. I know how to turn some nothing into something and then back to nothing, because we got to get back to nothing real quick. And I would try to ask them, oh, so what do your parents do? Oh, they're business owners. Did you work in their business? And they'd be like, yeah, but whatever. And so I realized like 17 to 18-year-olds weren't going to help me figure out the money lessons they had, because they didn't know they had them, right? And so I started
Mhm.
reading books, because LeVar Burton and Reading Rainbow told me, if you ever need to learn something, look in a book. I'm like, it's 7 libraries on this campus. I'm sure it's a money book somewhere. And so I started reading books about money and credit and career. And by the time I was, over the course of the last like 15 or 20 years, I've read, I think the last I counted, like almost 140 books on those topics. And a few years ago, I had just finished reading another book, because I also just like to see, again, because there's so many different ways to work with money and to make it work and to be successful around it, that I like reading personal finance books, because I'm just so interested to hear other perspectives and to see how other people have made it work for them. And I had finished a book, and my husband was like, "Oh, how was it?" And I was like, "I could have wrote that book." And then I read another book, and I had to say, "I could have wrote that book." And after the third or fourth time, he was like, "Well, why don't you? What's keeping you? We talked about you writing a book like some years ago. What's keeping you from writing the book?" And at that time, what was keeping me from writing the book is I had so many ideas in my head that I
Mhm.
wasn't sure how to untangle them and make them a clear story, so that somebody could use all these books, that are these dozens and dozens of books that I read, so that they could save some years and some tears, and instead read my book, and they'll get like 12 books, 15 books, 30 books in one. And what did it for me too is, when I was really in the early stages of those, the first like 5 or 6 books I read had a really big impression on me, but they also pissed me off, because almost all of them told me, when you're getting your financial situations together, everybody's cut off. You don't do anything for anybody, you don't loan, you don't give, you don't take care of. And that didn't work for me. My siblings were still home in the aftermath of all that crazy stuff I went through in high school. And
Mhm.
if they needed something, if my sister said, I want to be on the dance team, but I don't know if we have the money for the fees, I'm sending the money for the fees. If my brother is like, oh, I need new cleats, my feet grew again, like, we gonna get the cleats, right? Like, so it wasn't realistic for me to be like, I'm cutting everybody off. And that wasn't what I wanted to do. And so I know, when I went to write the book, that I needed to put in a framework for the people who are like me, who it was so deeply important to support whoever it is they were wanting to support, while also securing their present, while also plotting and building a future, like to be able to do the past, the present, and the future of their money at the same time. And so that's how I wrote the book, because I want people to know that, yes, you got to do all three at the same time, but it's possible. It's possible. And again, you have the ability that, with a few mind tricks, a few mind games, you can actually make it really fun and joyful and pleasurable. And so whenever a relative would call and say, oh, we're having this issue, I actually took great pleasure in being like, oh, well, I can take care of that. Not because I was trying to show off or brag, but because it brought me pleasure to be like, oh, what would help? And to be able to help. And it wasn't no problem.
That means a lot. And see, that really is the opposite of what a lot of people grow up hearing. Um, and I don't know what it is, if all these people are just like that jaded about their families or what, but a lot of, financial educators, financial advisors, people who are, having these platforms teaching people about money, they kind of just toss family like out the door down the street somewhere. It's kind of like, like you said, when you're trying to get together, don't worry about all these extra people, right? Like, if they don't live with you, they don't matter. And a lot of people don't function like that. And it's not even because they feel like they have to, they genuinely want to. And it can be damaging to feel like you have to exclude your family, your whole family, from, like your goals and what it is that you're trying to do. So, in your opinion, what are some ways that we can have conversations about money with our family, with friends or people that are close to us, our loved ones, that foster a sense of connectivity versus like tension and exclusion?
One of the things that I'm going to keep bringing us back to is this clarity and awareness. Because one of the things that I figured out, I think I was in graduate school by this point, is with my siblings, they needed stuff sometimes, and I was happy to do it. And because I kept a very close eye on how my money was coming in and out, because that also helped me know how many shifts I needed to take at the restaurant and whether it was okay for me to work an early in the week shift, which were easier, or if I needed a weekend shift because the money was better, right? It just helped me know how much money I needed to cover all the obligations. I had looked back over this 3-month period and noticed like I had sent on average about $150, $170 home every month. And so the next time the parent called, and she wasn't directly asking, but kind of saying, oh, we kind of need this, and I'm trying to work it out, right? She was really calling to kind of work it out. And I said, actually, I'm so glad you called. I've been meaning to talk to you. I noticed that you have a shortfall of about like $175 every month. And she thought I was like about to cut her off, or be really unkind about it. And I was like, no, 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 no. Like, I'm like, the thing you told me you need, I'm already on the online banking to send that to you. We're going to take care of that. And I noticed that it seems like you need like 150, 175 a month. She was like, really? I didn't realize that. I said, yeah. Do you happen to have a bill? Do you have a bill that's about that amount of money? Because I'm so happy to do it. And sometimes you call on the day that I don't have the cash because I just took all the money from the restaurant and put it in my bank account, or maybe I just paid whatever bill was due that week. And so you kind of messing up my cash flow. And again, I want to make it clear, I'm not trying to be like you messing me up. That's not the message here. The message is I just need it to work different, because the way that I want to run my money, this ain't working for me. And so, do you have a bill that is about $175? And they were like, yeah, actually, my car insurance is $177. I said, perfect. Do you know what day of the month is due? And she told me which day. I said, okay, can you send me a copy of the bill? Because starting next month, that bill now belongs to me. Because I'm not gonna miss no bill, right? Like, we're not gonna miss no bill. And because I know what day it is, I know, what money needs to be in which account so that the bill gets paid. And I said, and I'm gonna take it over. And this just means you can't call me unless it's a real emergency, like something totally out of the ordinary. And hopefully this will give you the wiggle room. And it did. That worked for years, probably 7 or 8 years, maybe even 10. I took care of that person's car insurance. And it really did give them just the wiggle room they needed, that they could keep things running smoothly. Right. But it was in a way that worked for me and still supported them.
That's beautiful and that's really important. And I know I'm one of those people that I want to get to that point where I'm able to help out, not because I feel like I need to, but just because it's something that I genuinely want to do, especially when it comes to my mama, like period. So so I love that, and I'm happy that you had that example that you can share, because it is possible. It absolutely is possible. And you don't have to start cutting people out of your life just because you're trying to get yourself together. Sometimes that's necessary, but if it goes against what is really in your heart, what you feel called to do, led to do, then there's another way to get it done. So thank you so much for sharing that with me and the people today. I want to ask you a couple of questions, and we are entering the pleasure principle portion of the interview. I have two questions that I want to ask you. Um, the first question is, what is your non-negotiable pleasure principle?
Deserve to be happy. I deserve to
Mhm.
be happy. I deserve to be happy. And I'm going to put the things in place. I'm going to take the things out of place. I'm going to shift the things around that make sure that I get what I deserve. And that's happiness. And me putting my happiness top of the list means that I get to be a happy and present mom. It means I get to be a cheerful wife. It gets to mean that I'm a great teammate, a great coworker, a bright spot in someone else's day, because I have done the things and I'm always consistently doing the things that tie into my happiness.
Beautiful, beautiful. And the last question that I want to ask you is, what does pleasure feel like for you?
Okay, this is like my favorite, my absolute favorite thing to do that just like gives me all the feels is I love throwing money at problems. It's my favorite thing to do because
Hmm.
if you got the money, it's probably not a problem. And it like, and that, like, I remember a time, and it was probably in college days, maybe even back to high school, where I saw so many things that if we had just a little bit more money, we could have solved the problem faster, or the problem wouldn't even come up at all. And so I take great joy. I get much pleasure out of, hmm, this isn't working. I wonder if there's a money solution to that. And 9 times out of 10, there is a money solution to that.
I love that so much. That is big boss energy. And I love everything about it. Everything about that. Because, yes, that's gold. That is gold. So thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you so much for your time today. I have really enjoyed this conversation. I know it blessed me, and I'm sure it has blessed somebody out there in the audience. And so before we wrap up, could you please take some time to let the people know where they can get your book, how they can keep up with you online, or how they can even become a client?
Yes. So come find me at my website, howtoaffordeverything.com. And while you're there, take a minute and take the quiz. I have a great quiz. It takes like 2 minutes, because the number one question that comes up is like, I don't even know where to start. How do I start? Where do I start? And so this quiz will break you into one of 4 personalities and tell you exactly what the next best step is for you. So then you know where to start. So howtoaffordeverything.com. And while you're there, grab the book.
Thank you so much. I'll make sure to have that down in the description or the show notes somewhere of the show. But again, thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you for your time, your energy, sharing your knowledge and your light with me and the people. And I wish you the absolute best. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Thank you for joining me on this week's episode of the Power of Pleasure podcast. Make sure to check the website, powerofpleasurepodcast.substack.com. On the site, not only will you find some blog posts and other helpful tools to help you continue the mission, you'll also be able to access the show notes as well as any social links and resources from this week's guest. While you're at it, if you found this information valuable, which I'm sure you did in some way, go ahead and take a few moments to leave a rating or review wherever you're listening to this episode and share out on social. I hope to see you next week for another episode of the show. And in the meantime, in between time, go out and do one thing today to help you embrace pleasure as a lifestyle.